The samurai were Japan's warrior class, rising to power in the 12th century and playing a key role in the country's history. Initially serving the imperial court, they became influential during the Kamakura shogunate and fought in events like the Mongol invasions. During the peaceful Edo period, they shifted to administrative roles. By the late 19th century, the samurai were abolished with the Meiji Restoration, but their legacy and influence remain strong in Japanese culture today. In this video, we are going to see the ketsu between the samurai of anime Tanjiro against samurai of cartoon Samurai Jack. Tanjiro was born on a mountain as the eldest son of Ki and Tanjiro Kamado, a family of charcoal sellers. After his 5 younger siblings were born, he adopted the idea that, as the oldest child, he should be strong and endure any hardships for them. But one night, Tanjiro's family is slaughtered by demons, and only he and his younger sister Nezuko survive. However, Nezuko is slowly turning into a demon. Now Tanjiro sets out to become a demon slayer to avenge his family and cure his sister. Demon Slayer has the different breath techniques. Breathing styles are swordsmanship styles that makes use of an esoteric breathing technique known as total concentration breathing practiced and taught by members of the Demon Slayer Corps and are used in combat by Demon Slayers. All known breathing styles currently taught within the Demon Slayer Corps are derived from sun breathing, the first one ever created. The majority of known breathing styles mimic a certain element of nature and replicates it with the user's movements, techniques, and abilities. The weapon attacks of Demon Slayers who use breathing styles are also longer ranged, possibly due to shockwaves or air pressure generated from their weapon itself when swinging and striking. Such breathing styles embody a bigger variety of concepts, like animals, plants, and emotions. In any case, these new creations always branch out of the 5 fundamental breathing styles. Many of them are personal creations limited to only one user due to a trait or combat style unique to them, but there are cases when branching breathing styles have found usage from other Demon Slayers aside from their creators. From the beginning, Tanjiro was shown to be a prodigious fighter, having a strong natural aptitude for combat, especially swordsmanship. Tanjiro was already introduced to have above-average human abilities, like honed senses, a sharp sense of smell, immense willpower, and great intellect. This trait of Tanjiro's was pointed out by Giyu during their first encounter, in which Tanjiro skillfully laid out a plan to attack Giyu by surprise by charging towards him. Tanjiro also showed proficiency in hand-to-hand combat despite never practicing martial arts before, allowing him to hold his own and adapt instantly to Inosuke's animalistic, unarmed fighting style, with strong skull, which the temple demon compares to a rock. During certain situations, he can headbutt the opponent hard enough to stun them or knock them out completely. But his signature power is his enhanced smell. Tanjiro possesses an extremely sharp sense of smell. Before becoming a Demon Slayer, Tanjiro was known in a village as a boy who had an extremely strong sense of smell. He is able to pick up even the most subtle of scents and track their location with terrifying accuracy over long distances. Through his heightened sense of smell, Tanjiro can perceive things outside the normal range of perception, like the intentions, feelings, and thoughts of other creatures, even animals such as insects and birds. Tanjiro was always shown to be a sword-fighting prodigy, starting out with skill rivaling Sabito, one of Sakanji Urokadaki's strongest students, surpassing him in half a year's time, and avenging his death by defeating the Hand Demon. Despite being Mizunoda ranked, his skill with the sword was superior to many of his seniors, even to the point of defeating 2 lower-ranked members of the 12 Kazuki. His improvement in swordsmanship is also exceptional, as shown when he could take on upper-ranked demons months after recovering from injuries and not having experience fighting enemies of that caliber in the past. This is evident as he managed to keep up and defend from Daki's fierce onslaught of sash attacks as well as Jutaro's attacks, despite the latter being immensely skilled in wielding his pair of kama and possessing over a century of experience in wielding them. Mitsuri Kenroji commented that accomplishing such a feat was equivalent to 5 to 10 years of harsh training. With intensive training in the swordsmith village, his skills and prowess with the blade could match those of the Hashira, the most powerful sword wielders in the entirety of the Demon Slayer Corps. Tanjiro later managed to match and surpass Akaza, the 3rd strongest member of the 12 Kazuki and a martial arts prodigy. Despite not being as skilled as Yurichi Tsujikuni, he was still able to fight on equal ground with Muzan while poisoned and exhausted, showing his immense proficiency in the blade, thus making him one of, if not the strongest swordsman of the current generation. After the test, he selected an ore, which would be made into his first Nichiren katana by the swordsmith Hataru Haganazuka. His Nichiren katana is obsidian black in color, but it was broken during a confrontation, and his final blade katana he found inside Yurichi Type 0 that was sharpened and polished by Hataru Haganazuka. His katana's original tsuba was switched to the one used by the late Kaijiro Rengoku, which is shaped like a flame with a red core and orange border. Tanjiro specializes in water breathing, taught to him by Sakanji Urokadaki, a previous water Hashira, and during his near-death experience in his battle with Rue. Tanjiro awakened this in a memory of his father, teaching him this breathing style. As his body was more suited to the Hinakami Kagura aka Dance of the Fire God, sun breathing. Breathing techniques also increases the coagulation of blood and increases the healing speed, stamina, and decreases spread of poison in bloodstream. During his first training, he was able to split a huge boulder in half, and by comparing it to the Tanjiro height, the boulder would weigh around 13.96 metric tons, and it would take around maximum of 1,875,000 newtons of force. We get to see Zenitsu move faster than a demon react in his Breath of Thunder first clap. While 80 to 100 milliseconds is an approximate minimum, conscious human reactions tend to be above this range, making it a hard lower boundary for reaction times. Anything below this, like 1 to 10 milliseconds, would be considered beyond human capacity, and judging from the mat shape, we could say that he moved at speed of 4,000 meters per second. During the Infinity Train arc, he was able to slice a train in half, and judging from the era, it would be the 8620 class steam locomotive, was manufactured in 1922 during Japan's Taisho era, which would take around 12 million newtons, an enormous force. For context, that's roughly the force needed to lift over 1,200 tons against Earth's gravity. Later, he was able to awaken his Demon Slayer mark, takes the form of a flame-like pattern, replacing the scar on his forehead. After Hashira training, his scar is replaced with a permanent flame mark, and when he activates his Demon Slayer mark, it grows in size, reaching past his eyebrows. Interestingly enough, Tanjiro's mark is exactly the same as the marks of Yurichi Tsujikuni and Kokushibo. The mark drastically enhances all of Tanjiro's natural abilities, such as his strength, speed, and reflexes, and have 100 times strength boost against Jotaro, which would be 1.2 billion newton of force. Mitsuri was fast enough to block and cut lightning. Later we see Tanjiro move at lightning speed, which would be 120,700.8 meters per second. And his sword turned red, but also gained the ability to ignite into flame. This phenomenon, which is known as the Blood Burst Sword or Blazing Blood Katana, is caused by a special power inherent in all Kamado that was triggered when Tanjiro's sister Nezuko, that sets off a memory in Tanjiro's mind linking him to Yurichi Tsujikuni, the inventor of the Hinakami Kagura sun-breathing form. The form was taught to Tanjiro's forebears and passed down to him from his father as a traditional family dance. With that memory, Tanjiro recalls the form's set of movements which he uses with his flaming sword. He was also strong enough to push a boulder which would be around 13.96 metric tons. Later fought Akaza, who is half as strong as Doma, who can create giant ice sculpture which would take around 71.17 tons of TNT, but he was poisoned, reducing his power up to 60%. So his hypothetical 100% would be 177.93 tons of TNT or multi-city block level. That would make Akaza 88.97 tons of TNT or city block level. During this fight, Tanjiro unlocked his see-through world. Demon Slayers that have awakened the mark can utilize a special form of ocular extrasensory perception that alters their vision, allowing them to perceive other living beings as if they were transparent, only being able to see the inner workings of their bodies. Most notably, users are able to perceive the flow of blood, breathing, muscular contractions, and joint movements of the creature they are looking at, predicting movements and spotting weaknesses. Potentially, one can use the transparent world's power to see inside an enemy's body as a way to predict and evade their opponent's attacks, as well as to find openings for their own strikes. His speed is increased dramatically, making his speed and slowing down time. In most cases, a 10 times increase in speed is seen as very dramatic, which would make his speed around 1,207,008 meters per second. Later fought Muzan, who was stronger than Kokushibo, making his overall power to 1.42 kilotons of TNT or small town level. His striking force would also increase during this time from 1.2 billion Newton of force to 32 billion Newtons of force with a single sword slash. Now we have seen the feats of Tanjiro, let's see if Cartoon Samurai can beat him. Samurai Jack follows the journey of a young, skilled samurai who is transported to a dystopian future by the evil shape-shifting demon Aku. In this future, Aku has conquered the world, and Jack's mission is to return to the past and defeat him before Aku's rise to power. Throughout the series, Jack faces various adversaries and challenges as he attempts to find a way back to the past. The show blends action, adventure, and deep philosophical themes, focusing on Jack's internal struggle, the burden of his quest, and his determination to restore balance and justice. As he battles Aku's forces and learns more about himself, Jack remains steadfast in his quest to defeat the demon and save the future. His trusty katana, which is not a regular blade forged from steel, rather from the literal righteousness forged by 3 different pantheons of gods such as Odin, Ra, and Rama for the sole purpose of destroying Aku, and was the only weapon that was capable of doing so in the world. Aku is an evil born right after the Big Bang. In the vastness of space, a great, formless, mindless entity of evil arose. Before it could do harm to the universe, it was set upon by 3 deities, each one originating from Norse, Egyptian, and Hindu mythologies. Odin, the father of Thor, Ra, the sun god, and Rama, the 7th avatar of Vishnu the Preserver. The 3 deities fought a fierce battle against the Black Mass and burned the entity almost completely out of existence with their divine power. However, during the battle, one small fragment of the entity was incidentally cut from the whole by Odin and was never burned away. Unnoticed by the 3 deities, that seemingly small fragment floated away from the site of the battle and drifted through space for an untold amount of time, until it eventually, and violently, crashed on Earth during the Cretaceous period in the Mesozoic era. It was implied that the fragment of the Black Mass is the very object that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs, although the crash occurred in prehistoric Japan as opposed to the Yucatan Peninsula by a massive asteroid. He is strong and fast enough to cut several pine trees which are 20 to 40 feet wide, making his sword-swinging speed around 154.62 kilometers per hour, and in the same episode fell from space. It is space because in the episode it required artificial gravity, and also they were going light speed. A spaceship moving at light speed would fare much better in the emptiness of space, where particle density is far lower. Earth's atmosphere would pose catastrophic obstacles at such speeds. To avoid these interactions entirely, a spacecraft would need to move in true outer space, well beyond even the exosphere, which extends up to around 10,000 kilometers from Earth. Once in interplanetary or interstellar space, the particle density is so low that it significantly reduces the chances of high-energy collisions, making it much safer for travel at extreme speeds. So, for light-speed travel, the safest zone would indeed be full outer space, far beyond Earth's residual atmospheric boundary layers. By adding the weight of the spacesuit, it would be around 430 pounds, falling from height at least around 10,000 kilometers from Earth in 14 seconds, and created a small mushroom cloud which would yield about 11.89 kilotons of TNT or town level, and Jack stood up and walked away. He was also fighting deadly robots, assassins, and minions of Aku constantly, and as the most wanted person on the planet. But even before that, he was trained by the best around the world. Jack's first teacher was located somewhere in his home nation of Japan and taught him how to find stars and use them to navigate. Jack's second teacher was a sheik located somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula. He taught Jack how to ride horses. Jack's third teacher, and the first to teach him the art of combat. This teacher was located presumably somewhere on the continent of Africa. He taught Jack how to fight using polearms, such as the staff, as well as presumably other similar weapons, and the art of Nguni stick-fighting martial art. A traditional martial art from South Africa that involves 2 combatants armed with sticks, one for offense and one for defense. Jack's fourth teacher, located in ancient Egypt. He taught Jack hieroglyphics and how to read them, as well as various fields of academics. Jack's fifth teacher was located in the Roman Colosseum. He taught Jack close-quarters combat, such as grappling, locks, and throws. Jack's sixth teacher, possibly Robin Hood, was located somewhere in England. He taught Jack the art of archery. Jack's seventh teacher located somewhere in Northern Europe, presumably in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, or Iceland. He taught Jack how to sail a boat and navigate in all forms of weather at sea. Jack's eighth teacher was located in Russia. He taught Jack how to use projectiles, such as axes and hatchets. Jack's ninth teacher, presumably located on the Mongol plains in what would later become Mongolia. He taught Jack how to use a spear whilst also riding. Jack's 10th teachers were the monks of the Shaolin Temple located in China and led by Master Chu. They taught Jack several styles of kung fu and how to fight with all the weapons they use, many of which are skills he still uses. They also taught him to use all of his senses, not just his sight and hearing, to extend his awareness and allow him to fight on any level. Jack also dodged arrows point-blank range, making his speed around 8,778.24 meters per second, survived under the ocean at the depths where a light barely reached its surface, making its depth at least around 1,000 meters, while Herbert Nitsch holds the Guinness World Record for the deepest dive without oxygen, reaching a depth of 253.2 meters, 831 feet. On June 6, 2012, however, he experienced decompression sickness 10 minutes after the dive. The pressure in the ocean at a depth of 1,000 meters is approximately 10,100 kilopascals. This is because pressure in the ocean increases linearly with depth by 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of depth, which means Jack would experience a force of approximately 20.2 million newtons on its surface due to the water pressure at a depth of 1,000 meters. He also swung a bamboo so fast he was slicing robots to achieve a cutting effect. The bamboo rod would need to travel at a speed of approximately 50.6 to 58.8 meters per second. This speed would provide enough energy to overcome the ultimate tensile strength of a heavy-duty robot material, allowing the bamboo to potentially cut through. In Season 2, he was able to lift 43.75 tons and run alongside apes. An average speed would be around 25 miles per hour, which means he would need to exert around 652,164 newtons total, factoring in both carrying and acceleration forces, and trained to jump about 137.2 meters later, even jumped out of a ravine without any effort. Later moved a stone pillar the height of 10.5 meter, which would weigh about 72 metric tons. He was fast enough to dodge beams of light, and measuring the distance, Jack could move at 210 million.00 meters per second, or around 70% speed of light. He also broke robots made of supermetal called adamantium, where the robot's tough enough to tore through buildings and even vaporize 2 buildings along with a tank and some bots along with it, and calculating the area it would require around 8.39 kilotons of TNT, the force required to break each robot with a sword strike, assuming a 1 centimeter, 0.01 meters, penetration depth, would be approximately 351 trillion newtons. Jack was able to cut through nearly 8 robots. He was also trained in ninjutsu, but instead of hiding in the shadow, he was able to hide in the light, making him to be invisible on a broad daylight. Fought the Scotsman nearly 24 hours without any rests or sleep, and later had to run away from bounty hunters. All of this was before the 50 years time skip. Due to the time travel, he stopped aging and wandered the world for 50 years, and during this time he lost his katana, but he was still fighting all the bounty hunters, which drove him to madness. Fought the daughters of Aku, who born for only one purpose, to kill Jack, but he was able to kill 6 of them without his katana and finally defeated Aku once and for all. Jack is stronger than Tanjiro, with or without the sword. While Tanjiro can barely move a boulder, while Jack could carry and sprint at least 25 miles per hour. With sword, both can exert monstrous force. Like Tanjiro was able to exert nearly 32 million newtons of force, while Jack can exert approximately 351 trillion newtons of force, which is around 10,968.75 times stronger. While Musen could scale to 1.42 kilotons of TNT, but the adamantium robots can make around 8.39 kilotons of TNT, which is nearly 5.91 times stronger, and Jack can fight 8 of them simultaneously. While Tanjiro is fast as lightning and his see-through world could increase his speed up to 10 times, making his speed around 1,207,008 meters per second, while Jack could dodge beams of sunlight, making his speed around 174 times faster than Tanjiro. While Tanjiro has some hand-to-hand combat, he was nowhere near the level of Jack, who practiced several types of martial arts, styles which would give him some major advantage, along with his ninjutsu, to hide him in broad daylight, which could be countered by Tanjiro's heightened smell. And in terms of experience, not only Jack leans skills all around the world, but extended 50 years in the future, while Tanjiro has battle experience equivalent to 5 to 10 years of harsh training. Still, Jack was a better fighter. Nichiren's sword is tough, but it won't match up to the sword made by the righteousness and forged by the gods. While it's not a certainty that the blade could cut Tanjiro, since it can't, someone with pure heart, but Jack could break Tanjiro's sword, then proceed to have hand-to-hand confrontation, for which Tanjiro would surely lose. Either way, if Jack's blade could or could not pierce Tanjiro, Jack would win regardless of the scenario, since he is stronger, faster, and more experienced than Tanjiro. Next would be Sym Bionic Titan fighting against Eren from Attack on Titan.